The law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. You cannot separate Moses from the law, and you cannot separate Jesus from grace. Some people see grace as a form of licentiousness, which simply means license to openly practice sin. On the contrary, grace is my escape and penalty from sin. For the scriptures say that we have been saved by grace through faith. Did you know that grace is more than a doctrine and a teaching? Grace is a person, and his name is Jesus Christ. Grace is more than enablement to do or to obtain something. Grace is the unmerited, unearned, undeserved favor of God extended to you through Christ. Grace is the gospel, for Paul preached the gospel of grace. See, salvation is not earned by deeds and is not maintained by works. The Bible never said without obedience it's impossible to please God. No, the Bible said without faith it is impossible to please God. Obedience teaching will never make you holy, but grace teaching will when you believe. See, when we learn of the Lord and take on his yoke, we find out that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Holiness is our separation to God, which means that we've been set apart from one thing to another thing. For we've been separated by him unto good works. But here's the good news. When God looks at us, he's not looking at our sin. He's looking at our sin offering. In other words, it's the offering that pays the price for our sin, as long as the offering met God's righteous demand. Jesus was blameless and without sin according to the scriptures. And he, Jesus, who knew no sin, became sin that we might become the righteousness of God. Jesus, our blameless sacrifice, took on the penalty of our sin. And now we can stand boldly before our God, blameless and righteous with a clear, guilt-free conscience. If this is the case, I ask myself, why has the gospel been minimized and contorted into a system of extreme behavioral modification? Why do we stress performance over assurance? Why has our hunger and passion for Christ diminished, but our religious performance excelled? Has the heart of God, which is Christ, been pushed aside for more emphasis on duty and work? I often wonder, how could Peter, a mere fisherman, become a founding father of the church and willingly with joy lay down his life literally for the defense of the gospel? I tell you, he didn't get that kind of boldness and passion through hearing teaching alone. No, Peter had an encounter and a personal experience with Jesus. And if this is the case, why don't we talk about Jesus anymore? I mean, we talk about everything under the sun in current contemporary culture, but rarely do we talk about Jesus. Some may say that doesn't make sense. How can you say we don't talk about Jesus? Well, of course, we talk about Jesus in our church services, but I'm not talking about honorable mentions. When I say we don't talk about Jesus, I am referring to the finished work of the cross. We don't spend enough time talking about the finished work of the cross. The gospel message is not that Jesus went to the cross or the grave, but that he got up. He got up from the grave, but the grave could not hold him. He conquered death and victoriously defeated the devil. 3 powerful words were spoken. It is finished, and divinely put into effect a new law that no longer condemned, but justified. The finished work of Christ is redemptive, reconciling, and justifying. Therefore, just as Paul told the church in Ephesus, since we have received this wonderful gift from God, let us remember to always walk and live worthy of the call. Remember, always grow in grace, one day at a time.